Good afternoon, it's Neil Getz from the group. We're up at Old Rayne, or Old Rayne, Recumbent Stone Circle. It's April and it's round about kind of 15-14 degrees. There's a little bit of a breeze, so apologies if that cuts in at the audio. So, Old Rayne then had a bit of a checkered past. It's relatively, I mean, it's one of the most accessible stone circles there is. This is the kind of corner of the field. There's my car. You just walk along, it's just maybe kind of 20-30 metres and you're at the circle. Out of the 8 stones, there's only one standing. But it's probably worthwhile. It's just really off the main A96 into this little village, Old Rayne, and then up to this little lay-by. A perfectly easy, very accessible circle to get to. And the stones are relatively significant. They're big stones, a bit like Ballinquine, just along the road there. So, and this stone circle and Ballinquine rather, are only maybe about 10 minutes drive apart. So a nice easy double to pick up if you're interested in doing that type of thing. This circle has had some carbon dating from what they found in a central court in the middle of the circle, which is kind of well kind of gone now. But they reckoned it was maybe kind of 3,700 years ago from a bone that they found. And there used to be where there's a clear field demarcation here. It used to be further towards me, going right through the middle of the circle. What's a little bit alarming when I turned up today was I found that the between stone 3 and stone 4 there's brand new tractor marks all the way through here, and there's a bit of a thoroughfare for tractors or farm equipment coming from this angle as well. So this protected site is getting used as a bit of a kind of tractor junction at the moment. Now, you could argue that there's maybe, apart from maybe kind of stone 4, there's not a huge amount to kind of be worried about, considering all the stones have fallen. But you can imagine it just takes a little bit of knocking and bracking forward, and the circle shape that we've got, or has remained the same for a couple of hundred, well, probably thousands of years, is now going to kind of maybe get a little bit damaged. So records pretty much show that the circle as it is just now was in the same state as it's always been for the last 200-300 years as far as records are concerned. They reckon that there have been 3 distinctive points of circle damage. Just before 1870 was probably when a lot of the damage was, the stones were felled, tried to be broken up and reduced and removed. Again in 1901 and again in 1926. So we've got what we've got. So let's start the walkthrough. We've got stone number 1, which is the west flanker, fallen in towards the circle and broken. A bit like kind of a Gandalf stone, as I would say. It's been broken right down the kind of middle section, and clearly for a while. It could have been, there's stone evidence there. It could have been pushed back and deliberately snapped. Difficult to kind of get to understand that, but if it was together and it was standing and up in its socket, you're probably talking, from lengthwise anyway, it's probably up at the sort of 2.2 meters maybe. And a bit of a slab, as far as I can tell, a bit either deliberately selected or shaped with a bit of a kind of right angle and flat surfaces there. So a bit of a slab of a stone, potentially the hints of a point up at the top. Again, we've kind of tried to kind of like talk about what flankers tend to have the characteristics of one's pointed and the other one tends to be square. So then we're on to stone 2, the Recumbent. Now I'm trying to get a bit of an elevated, I'm a bit more short chap, so try to get an elevated shot here. It's almost 4 meters in length. It's a bit like Balquine that I was just at, which was over 4 meters. This is about 3.85, I think. A bit of a slab, not quite as flat surface, but clearly a flattish surface that would be presented to the south. So in the middle of the circle, looking over the Recumbent, you're pretty much looking south, maybe a little bit off, but pretty much looking south. So yeah, a large flattish frontage would be perpendicular to the ground, facing south, and it's completely fallen back. The top is fairly flat. The top would have been fairly flat, and there's no idea of what would be underneath, but you can imagine it would be a fairly flat slab. It looks like it maybe be just over half a metre wide, but there's a bulge here, so it could be a pointed end. But it's a monster of a Recumbent. It's not Old Keeg for sure, but it's no far off, probably weight wise, but it's a slab and a half. Very similar in characteristic, which is interesting, to Balquine that I was just at, and that was a flat surfaced 4 metre long slab of a Recumbent stone. So there could be a kind of similar characteristics thing going on because the circles are fairly close by. Could be a crossover of building techniques and selection of stones between the two communities. You never know, but certainly a big flat slab of a Recumbent stone. And then stone 3, or the east flanker, fallen kind of along the circle kind of shape here, and you can see there's a few other stones being kind of piled up against it. But a block of a stone, it's a big stone, that one. Solid looking machine of a stone. And again, up on its side, up on its socket rather, you may be talking about 2.2 meters tall, but potentially a kind of squared top, whereas the number 1 stone, or the west flanker, was pointed. Now there's a couple of stones kind of being pushed into the middle. I can only suspect that these stones have maybe been kind of the outliers of the back of the circle, potentially. We'll never know. It looks like there's a stone here, block here. And the central court was round about here, but it's been completely removed. So we're on to stone 4. This is the only stone that's standing. Quite a characteristic of a stone, this one. It looks like it's got a little shell for its, got a wee arm sticking out. So it's about 2.2 again. It probably was a bit of a slab, a bit of kind of like maybe kind of just about a metre wide at the base, kind of coming up to a point as it stands just now, but a good flat face facing outwards from the circle. Again, chunks have been taken off from here. You can imagine if that tractor goes past again, it'll just take that section off if it clips it, if it's carrying any equipment behind it. And a good flat face facing inwards to the circle as well. So that's stone number 4. Good solid stone. And then there'll probably be a stone missing here, maybe 2, all the way around to stone 5. You can see there's been kind of ruts in the ground here where tractors have passed. As far as I can tell, it looks like a bit of a slab of a stone. Looks like it's maybe it's fallen out from this circle. Hard to kind of tell, except that maybe kind of this leading edge is a bit thin at the top, you'd imagine. And again, a slab of a stone, flat face, as far as we can tell. Good right angles being selected or carved, and potentially a flat edge, and underneath there's no way of telling. But again, if it was standing up in its socket, a good quarter or a third of it would have been in its socket, so it would have only been maybe up to chest height on me. So as normal, the kind of characteristics would be the flankers would be the tallest ones coming round in the circle, and then it's getting shorter and shorter. Quite alarming tyre marks all the way directly right through the centre of this circle, which is a bit alarming. Farmers are normally very, very good at keeping these stone circles well protected, and it's just a bit odd that they're using it as a junction for the tractors. So we are at now stone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like this one has fallen out of the circle, just with this top edge. Looks like it's maybe kind of pointed. And again, not very long. Again, if we say maybe, a quarter to a third is buried in the socket, it would probably start to get up to kind of my shoulder height, and we're starting to kind of come round the circle arc here, so chances are it's starting to get a little bit taller. So that's 6, and this is 7. Sorry about if the wind's giving it a bit of quality to the, or poor quality to the audio. Stand to my back with the, again, 7, and it could be that, again, this is the top of the stone here, and it would pretty much suggest that this being the base, fallen over, broken, pushed over. Again, if it was up in its socket, chances are it's starting to kind of get a little bit kind of taller again. And then there's a bit of a gap here where you're probably talking about maybe another stone or two before we get along to stone 8. So that's clearly been moved or pushed, like the 2 stones there. It's been pushed into the kind of, there's a lot of smaller, medium-sized stones here that's been pushed towards the recumbent. But this has been identified as stone 8. From the end of it, it looks a bit kind of triangular. Potentially this flat face has been facing out of the circle. Never really can tell, but there's a pretty big flat face here, so we could have maybe standing with the profile, the long profile along the line of the circle. Bit triangular, a bit kind of deeper at that end, but it's a chunk of a stone. And again, if we say maybe kind of quarter to a third is put in its socket, you're probably talking about head height for me here. So that's where we have got to for Old Rayne, and a little bit of a walkthrough. Hope you've found that interesting. It is a little bit of a it's nowhere near Easter Quarties or Balquina I was just at, but they are big stones. I mean, they're all fallen apart from number 4, but they are big stones, worth seeing because it is incredibly easy to get here, very accessible from the lay-by, so it's definitely worth a visit. But a little bit alarming that the landowners are using it as a bit of a thoroughfare for their tractors. So let's get back around here to have another last look at this recumbent stone, and I'll let you guys head off. Thanks very much.